So growing up in the 90s, my dad always had copies of Texas Trophy Hunters magazine and North American Whitetail laying around. And I remember reading an article in those magazines about the typical 12 pointer. So I think it was an article by Larry Weishuhn or Horace Gore talking about this typical 6x6 rack configuration on a whitetail and how rare it was for an old whitetail buck to have this typical 12 point frame. So after that article, I've always been enamored with that rack configuration. I always wanted to get a 6x6, a typical 12 of my own. And so through the course of my hunting experience, I've had the opportunity to pursue two big deer that had that rack configuration. Although I didn't catch up with either one of those two deer, they were killed later by other hunters. I had a good time chasing them. I really wanted one, but at the end of the day, I still didn't have that typical 12 that I wanted. So going into 2019, I joined a new lease in the hill country, and talking to some of the lease members, I knew that that typical 12 was something that they had seen and a gene that they actually had in the herd. So I was pretty excited about the possibility going into the season in 2019. So on opening Sunday of deer season, I was sitting in a stand and had a lot of bucks coming in, had a good bachelor group coming in, and looked out, and one of the bucks that I saw, big body, mature deer, had a really big head, big brisket, big gut on him. He actually was a 6x6. He was that 12 pointer. So I brought the footage back to camp, reviewed it with some of the other lease members, and everybody agreed that that was a mature deer, definitely one that I could target for the course of the season. And with that, how he looked, what his configuration was, I gave him the name 12 pack. So that opening weekend kind of started my journey that would take me all the way to the end of deer season 2019. So I went back and started looking at trail camera photos and things like that from the summer to get a pattern on this deer. And what I found through the course of all of that was that he was really consistent at one spot. He was hitting other ones occasionally, but he was just really, really honed in on this one area. So I started sitting there and hunting him. I hunted him all of October. I saw him once, but I didn't get a good encounter with him. Had some cows kind of blow up the situation, and so at the end of October, he ended up coming in on me, kind of right at the end of last light one day. And at the time, I was borrowing a bow. Mine had gone back to the manufacturer for warranty, so I was using this bow. Although I was shooting it good, it was not mine, and I wasn't super familiar with it. But it was a 60-pound bow, and I was shooting a really heavy arrow. And so this deer comes in and I'm ready. I take a deep breath, I focus, I've got the camera on, everything looks good. I pull back and I execute what I think is a good shot, but I don't hit him, or I don't hit him where I thought I should. And so I'm looking around, did I hit the blind? Did I hit the chair? What happened? Why didn't I hit this deer? And he ran out there and I'm watching him, and I look and I notice that he's kind of bleeding down his leg, and I look and he's got an arrow nick on the offside leg from where he was positioned to me. And so after thinking about it, looking at putting it all together, I realized he was about 8.5 yards further than I thought he was. So with the 60-pound bow, with the heavier arrows, with the arc and the distance, it had gone right below him, below the vitals. It was a non-lethal hit. So I watched him walk off that night knowing his leg was not broken. It was more or less a flesh wound. So I think it was about 4 days later that we got him on camera again. Still kind of coming in, didn't look to be any worse for the wear other than that nick in his leg. And so that started from the end of October until basically, early January, started kind of the trials and tribulations of 2019 for me. So although I spent a lot of time hunting that deer, it just never worked out where I had another good encounter with him. So I would see him off in the distance, but he wouldn't come in. There were a couple other hunters in camp, Dave, Steve, Larry. They would go sit for one of the other bucks in that area, and he would come in for them, no problem. And so looking back now, it's kind of funny, but at the time it was really frustrating that I was having good encounters with bucks that they were after, and they would see my buck, the 12 pack, and I couldn't, didn't get another opportunity at him. So the rut started, and he really started chasing does hard. And so the next really good encounter Larry actually had with him at a different blind, but he was locked down on a doe and very healthy. He had healed at this point. It had been a month from the time that I had hit him. He had healed all the way. He was rutting does hard, so no worries on that end. But I still couldn't see him. No matter where I sat, no matter what I did, he would not come in for me. And so fast forward a little bit more toward the end of December, and at this point, it's getting to be the end of the season, the last couple weeks, and he showed up one day with a busted G5. So that was a little discouraging, but at the same time, I'd put in all this time and I still didn't have a good opportunity to shoot him. So I still continued to hunt him, still continued to put in all the time and the effort, but it just hadn't worked out. So I go into camp on New Year's, ready to hunt kind of the last 4 or 5 days of season. I'm pretty excited. I know at this point the rut has been winding down. The buck should still be coming in pretty consistently at this point again, and pull all the cards and he's just not there. He's not on the trail camera. He's not hitting any spot. He's just not around. And so at this point, hadn't seen him for 5 days. So I started hunting that stand, and over the next 4 or 5 days from when my hunt started, I was in there every morning, every afternoon. I saw all the other deer in that area, all the bucks, lots of does, all kinds of different age classes, sizes, and shapes of deer, but just not him. He just wasn't around. So at this point, it had been 9 days going into the last day of season where he has not shown up anywhere. I'm still pulling the cards. I've been in that stand morning and evening for 5 days now, and just he has not shown up. So going in that last morning, I decided there's a couple other management bucks around here. If one of the 2 management bucks comes in, I'm going to go ahead and take one of them if I don't see him early. And so that last morning, it's getting light, and all these deer start filtering in. Got lots of does, some really nice bucks around, but neither 12-pack nor the 2 management bucks are in. And so I just kind of laughed, right? Finally decide to shoot something else and don't see that those deer that had been pretty consistent during the whole course of this time. So I started thinking, what happened to him? I didn't think the neighbors were going to shoot him, but did he get shot? Is he locked down with a doe? I start, going through all these things in my head. And early in the hunt, all these deer kind of looked back to the east, and then all of them took off. So something had spooked them. They didn't see me. They didn't look at me or anything, but something that I think it was cows probably that they had seen, and they took off. And so last morning of deer season, it's getting daylight, and I don't have any deer in front of me. So grinding it out, going to put in all the time for the very last hunt, and about 30 or 40 minutes later, I look up and I just see him. I see a flash in the brush, and I just know instantly that it's him. All the other deer were out and they're gone. This is the only one I really haven't seen that I know kind of hangs in that area, and there he is. So sure enough, he starts walking up, and I get ready. I've got my bow set up, got the camera ready. I just need him to come in. I need this opportunity because I haven't had it since way back in October. So he slowly works his way in. It takes him probably 15 minutes. He tried to circle the blind, tried to win the blind and everything. And I don't have anything of his approach on video because he was coming in so slow and I didn't want him to try to win me. So I'm crouched down in the blind, just ready. He finally works his way in very slowly. He would take a bite and then leave, and then take a bite and leave, and finally comes in and he's facing me. So he gives me enough time to calm down, get ready, and I know as soon as he turns, I'm going to pull back and I'm going to execute a good shot. So luckily for me, something happened where he gave me that opportunity. As soon as he turned, I pulled back, I steadied, floated that pin, and I slowly squeezed, and it hit him hard. What a freaking hunt. I've been chasing that deer since the opening Sunday of deer season. Today is the last Sunday of deer season, the last hunt. Deer season is over. The rush of emotions that swept over me at that time, just, you can't describe it, right? I had put in, at that time, 43 hunts for this specific deer. I had a great season otherwise. I'd killed 4 other deer. This was my last tag. I was going to be tagged out. He finally came in, and I finally got him. I looked over. I actually did watch him crash. Got just the tail of it on video, and so it was a cool feeling just to see him that last day, to know that he made it, he was alive. But to have him come in and have the events unfold the way they did was really special. And so I'll always look back at the season and remember the season that I did get my 12-pointer and the perseverance that it took to get it done. The last hour of the last hunt on the last day, 43 hunts into deer season 2019.